A very good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Lunchtime News on TV1. Starting off with your top story this afternoon, Velioya area in the Mullaitivu district has received rainfall of 356.6 millimeters in the last 24 hours. What more can you expect on Lunchtime News? Let's take a look on your top stories this afternoon.
27 police jurisdictions in the island isolated. Those who entered these areas illegally to be arrested. Committee appointed to review COVID-19 related deaths. Concessions for intercity bus operators. Velioya in the Mullaitivu district receives 356.6 millimeters of rainfall. US Secretary of Defense fired.
Taking a look at weather-related stories to start off with, Velioya in the Mullaitivu district has received rainfall of 356.6 millimeters in the last 24 hours. According to the Department of Meteorology, Alampili, also in the Mullaitivu district, received rainfall of 252 millimeters, and Padavishripuram in the Trincomalee district received rainfall of 203 millimeters.
The highest rainfall was recorded from Velioya in the Mullaitivu district. The Meteorology Department added Gomaran Kadavala in the Trincomalee district has received a rainfall of 130 millimeters, and Kapugol in the Anuradhapura district have recorded a rainfall of 111.5 millimeters. Showers or thunder showers will occur at times in the northern, eastern, north central and northwestern provinces. Heavy showers above 100 millimeters can be expected at some places in the northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee district. Also, heavy showers above 100 millimeters can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, southern and central provinces. I request the general public to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers.
The 36th COVID-19 related death in the country was reported last night.
The deceased was an 84-year-old female from Kandana. The deceased had been ill for a long period of time and had succumbed to pneumonia as a result of contracting COVID-19. Meanwhile, 356 new COVID-19 cases were discovered yesterday. The total number of COVID-19 patients in the country increased up to 14,285. With the recovery of 595 patients yesterday, the total tally of recoveries in Sri Lanka rose to 8,880. 5,370 patients are currently receiving treatment for the virus.
A new quarantine center was declared open in Mutwal today for police officers undergoing quarantine. The quarantine center was declared open by the senior DIG in charge of the Western Province, Deshabandhu Tennakon. The police officers who contracted COVID-19 are recovering fast. 27 officers recovered today. Police officers who maintained close contacts with the officers who tested positive for COVID-19 have been quarantined at 3 quarantine centers with all required facilities in Colombo Central, North and South. We have prepared 150 beds at these centers. If a police officer is identified as a close contact, we have all the required facilities to place them under quarantine. An effective welfare program has also been launched for the benefit of police officers who have tested positive for the virus or has been identified as a close contact of a COVID-19 patient. The government has decided to establish a review committee to analyze the COVID-19 related deaths in the country. 23 deaths have been reported in a very short time. Close to 50% of these deaths were reported to have taken place in the victims' homes. As a result of continuous requests from the Health Ministry to analyze these incidents, the Director General of Health Services appointed this review committee yesterday. We see that as a positive development. Specialist doctors reporting on how the virus has spread across the world have said that this pandemic will reach dangerous proportions. It has already come to a very dangerous level. The government is asking the general public to ensure their own safety. Many suspicious deaths have been reported. If this information is concealed from the people, the spread of this pandemic cannot be stopped.
Head of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of the COVID-19 outbreak and Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, said that the areas falling under the police jurisdictions of Kandana and Mahabage in the Gampa district were declared as isolated areas until further notice.
Army Commander added that the Grama Seva divisions of Angulana North and Angulana South were also declared as isolated areas with immediate effect. However, all areas in the Kurunagal municipality apart from the Ilipugedara and the Kadavidya Grama Seva divisions have been removed from the list of isolated areas. Only the Galagedara, Hammalava and Ehala Kalagumu Grama Seva divisions in the Kuliapitiya police divisions are currently isolated in the Kurunagala district. The quarantine curfew, which was imposed in the western province and to several other areas, were lifted at 5 a.m. last morning. However, authorities urged the people living in isolated areas to stay indoors and to not step out of their homes. During the period in which a particular area has been isolated, no one is permitted to enter or exit the area. Permission will not be granted for public transport to operate within the areas that have been isolated. However, passenger transport buses and trains will be allowed to travel across these areas. These buses and trains are not permitted to stop in any areas that have been declared as isolated areas.
The National Transport Commission said that there is a considerable drop in the number of passengers using public transport services after curfew was lifted in many areas, including in the Western Province yesterday.
Only 10% of the total fleet of inter-provincial buses are operating at present. All buses were prepared for operation, but only 10% was added to service due to low passenger numbers.
Cabinet approval has been granted to provide concessions for intercity bus operators to support them in providing uninterrupted services to the general public.
According to the Government Information Department, a decision has been taken to waive and release the following charges from the passenger transport bus owners with effect from March 2020 for the continuous maintenance of intercity, interprovincial passenger transport bus service amidst the COVID-19 pandemic conditions. Permit updating charges, delay charges, tender charges, logbook charges, access permit charges and temporary permit charges for the expressways. The department went on to note that however it has been identified that the passenger bus owners need to be provided with relief to cater to their commuters with much quality and efficient service since they have been confronted with numerous constraints due to the uprise of the pandemic as a second wave. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers has rendered their consent to the proposal admitted by the Minister of Transport for further providing the said relief until the end of this year to the bus owners considering the prevailing condition.
In some unfortunate news now, an infant was killed in an accident that was reported early this morning. This was among 3 accidents that were reported in the country today.
An accident in Dunhina Damula claimed the life of a 1-month-old infant this morning. According to our correspondent, a 3-wheeler travelling along the Badulla Mahyangane road had fallen off a precipice after the wheels of the vehicle had come off. 4 people, including the infant's mother and grandmother, were travelling in the 3-wheeler at the time of the accident. According to our correspondent, the grandmother of the deceased infant was injured and admitted to the Badulla General Hospital. The deceased was a resident of Bibile. 2 people were injured in an accident that occurred in Kalutara North. 2 motorbikes travelling towards Gaul was involved in the accident. The injured have been admitted to the Nagore General Hospital. One person was injured in an accident that occurred in Mahagalwava Suryavava. A vehicle travelling towards Thanamalvila had veered off the road last night. Area residents point out that frequent accidents are reported along this road at night as there are insufficient signboards at high-risk areas along the road.
US President Donald Trump has fired his Defense Secretary Mark Esper in one of the latest signs that the transition to a new Biden administration in January is going to be turbulent, both domestically and on the foreign front. Esper was fired by tweet, with the former president declaring he was pleased to announce that Christopher C. Miller, the highly respected director of the National Counterterrorism Center, will be acting Secretary of Defense effective immediately. In a calmly worded final letter to the president, Esper wrote, quote, "I serve the country in deference to the Constitution, so I accept your decision to replace me," unquote. He left the Pentagon quietly today without the clap-out from staff members traditionally accorded to the departing secretary. Miller arrived at the Pentagon today amid questions about the legality of his appointment. By law, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, current David Norquist, would become the acting secretary in the event of a sudden departure at the top. Furthermore, the law requires that a Secretary of Defense to have been out of active duty military service for 7 years. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's spokeswoman has vowed the legal battle to contest Joe Biden's White House election victory is only just beginning. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany told a news conference, "Far from it. She made a flurry of allegations of election corruption, although no evidence of systematic fraud that might have influenced the results has emerged." In more international news, the High Court in Mumbai has refused to grant bail to top Indian TV news anchor Arnab Goswami, who is under arrest in an abatement to suicide case.
The 47-year-old founder of Republic TV was detained last week and remanded for 14 days. He is being investigated for his alleged role in the death of an architect who designed his studio. Goswami and Republic TV network deny allegations that he owed money to Anve Naik, who took his life in 2018. The case is being closely followed as Goswami is a polarizing figure whose contentious broadcasts have earned him loyal viewers as well as critics. His arrest, too, has divided opinions, with many alleging it was politically motivated.
Some sad news from the entertainment industry. The Scooby-Doo franchise has lost both of its creators within months. Less than 3 months after co-creator Joe Ruby died in August, his counterpart Ken Spears died from complications related to dementia.
Ken Spears' son, Kevin, confirmed to foreign media that the legendary writer died from complications related to LBD on Friday at the age of 82. Spears co-created the 1969 animated series Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? With Joe Ruby. The writing producing partners later launched their own company, Ruby Spears Productions, in 1977.
And that's a wrap of Lunchtime News on TV1 for today. Of course, to follow details of these stories and much more, you can log on to our award-winning website, www.newsfirst.lk. So don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team. Have a great evening.